Spoilers, offensive content. Two Fat Guys Talk, the podcast, the series, the podcast, the movie, the podcast.
The TV series.
The TV series, the podcast, the novel, the podcast, the book. This is episode 98.
That's what a novel is.
I don't care. That's episode 98. We are not dead. A new editing station has been procured, and we'll have anime raves back up again. Give us another week or two. Let me find my soul a little bit, and then we'll get back to that. In the meantime, we have a podcast for you. And Dave called for this one because he has things he wants to say to you. Dave?
Yeah, we have topics to talk about. So, let's start with the most recent Street Fighter V tourney.
You mean Evolution 2017?
Yeah.
Let's. You know what? There's quite a bit to talk about from Evolution 2017, from new reveals to controversies. And yes, there is stuff that you might even be interested in. But
fighting game tourney, don't care.
But it's there's one specific thing you wanted to bring up.
So, ESPN actually had them pause the stream and had them change out Cammy's traditional outfit for a different skin because it was...
The traditional outfit was
her traditional military leotard that she's worn since Street Fighter, 2?
Yeah, since her inception.
Yeah. This was too much for the network, and they had them change her skin to one of her other outfits that didn't show so much butt cleavage.
So, ESPN, a sports network that, like many sports networks, cater to the worst demographic, men, and therefore features lots of TNA, let's say, thought that Cammy's outfit was too much. Okay, let's be real. Cammy's outfit is a little stupid. I've always argued this. I think that some characters are totally okay being in big sex appeal outfits because it fits the character and the character themselves to show in this fictional world that they have some agency, that they would want to wear something like that. Characters like Laura or Jury, for instance, will wear provocative outfits. But when you put them on characters who probably don't feel the same way, like Karin, who got real sexed up between Street Fighter Alpha 3 and Street Fighter 5, or Cammy, who is a military person. That's a little stupid. I've always thought Cammy's outfit was dumb. Funny enough, I like her outfit when she was a hidden boss in that really shitty Final Fight game. Final Fight, the one where there's a zombie virus and you play as Cody's brother.
Sure.
She had a cool outfit in that, which was like it was kind of like a tank top sports bra thing with big cargo pants that I thought actually looked really cool on her. I would put that as her default outfit, but that's just me. Cammy's outfit has always been dumb, and I don't believe for a second Cammy herself would make that her first call. That said, Cammy's basically a tard is nowhere near as, let's say, stimulating as some of the shit ESPN airs regularly.
And they were asked outright, why did they have basically Cammy's outfit censored in this case?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, it's too much.
Now, here's the thing, fuckboys. This is actually censorship. When Capcom changes an animation because they don't want it to be so TNA-y, they're not censoring themselves. They're making a choice for how they want to present their art. When ESPN tries to censor some of Capcom's art because they want to feature Street Fighter V on ESPN, that's censorship. That is actually censorship. And not only is it wrong, it's also stupid considering what ESPN airs regularly. No sports network, no network that caters to the worst demographic men should ever No, I'm not going to stop that. Should ever be judgmental about showing this, because fucking Spike and TSN and ESPN and all those other networks, TSN's a Canadian one, and other networks, they show scantily clad women, they show sex appeal to draw in men constantly. Cammy is not too much by comparison. Like, unless ESPN is changing and they're trying to be less about that, even then it would still be wrong to do this. But then again, Capcom has been involved in clusterfuck after clusterfuck. This one's not really their fault, but still. It's funny, I thought Tekken 7 should have been the game that went on ESPN, because it's a better fighter, and it's also a very good spectator game. That should have been the ESPN game, honestly. But now I'm afraid, because there's some sexy ladies in Tekken 7.
May. Or no, not May, Mai.
Yeah. Nice. So you named two characters that are not in any Tekken game. All right. So there's some sexy ladies in Tekken 7. I'm a little worried that, Lucky Chloe will have to wear some custom, because you can do custom outfits in that game, some really prudish nun outfit, because ESPN was too fucking taken aback by her default idol girl outfit. Yeah, May's from Guilty Gear. Mai is from... Well, there's a Blaze Blue Mai, there's a King of Fighters Mai.
I was thinking King of Fighters, actually.
Yeah. Oh god, could you imagine King of Fighters was on ESPN? Mai goes on, and ESPN can't handle the jigglerifics. Like, still, though, honestly, yeah, there's an argument to make that Cammy's outfit should be different, but there's also an argument to make that ESPN can go fuck themselves. I don't know.
I actually agree with you on that. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Both the outfit's ridiculous, as well as ESPN censoring it.
Yeah, I agree. EVO 2017, a lot happened. A lot was announced. More characters for Dragon Ball FighterZ, including a Dragon Ball FighterZ tournament that I saw a lot of footage of. Game looks really, really good. More on Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which still looks mechanically solid, but otherwise boring. A new Blaze Blue game was announced that I actually want to play quite a bit.
Oh, you're talking the
Blaze
tag
Blue
team
Cross Tag Battle, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
A big crossover game with Blaze Blue and Persona 4 Arena and Under Night in Birth and Ruby from Rooster Teeth?
Like, where's Guilty Gear in this?
It's not, because I know exactly why they made this game. Because the sprite work in Blaze Blue and Persona 4 are similar enough that they probably we need to use these assets somehow, right? Let's just do what Capcom did in X-Men vs. Street Fighter and throw them all in a big fighting game. And to Sarksis, it's going to be fun. Mm-hmm. Hell, a lot of the Capcom versus games are good games, to be honest. It's just today's Capcom that seems to be fucking it all up. They had all these sprites, and Under Night in Birth, I guess, just jived well enough with that sprite style. They're like, let's throw that in there, too. Yeah, there's not going to be Guilty Gear characters in this, because the Guilty Gear XX characters don't look good enough, and the Guilty Gear Xrd characters are polygons. So, Guilty Gear skipped the Blaze Blue graphic model generation.
That is true. That is true.
They still could animate a new sprite. Ruby from Ruby is a new sprite, right? So that they're going to add a new sprite here and there. They could add a new Persona sprite. They could grab someone from Persona 5 to throw in.
They probably will. Or
they can grab one of the bazillion lore characters that exist in Blaze Blue's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the game looks like a lot of fun, and it looks like it plays more like something like a Marvel or even a Dengenki Bunko or even Unil. So I'm definitely keeping my eye out for that game. They announced Geese Howard in Tekken 7 bodying fools with counters and countering supers and shit, and he looked so good in this game.
I just can't bring myself to care about Tekken.
It's fine. It's not everyone's cup of tea. There's a lot about Tekken that's easy to learn, and a lot about Tekken that's very difficult to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Very large move
I
lists.
used to play Tekken 1 in arcades.
Yeah.
And I was good with it back then. It's just I moved beyond it.
Who did you use?
I used pretty much anybody. Most of the time in arcades, I would just be like, okay, let's choose that person. Great. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to need a full list of names of everyone in Tekken 1.
Not a fucking chance.
Uh,
Tekken 1 was more of a choose a random character and just mess up whoever's beside me.
Capcom continued its show of pure audience disconnect by, in a weekend of cool announcements for other games, announcing Abigail for Street Fighter V, who looks really stupid. Mechanically, he's neat because he's as tall as two Kens. He towers over Zangief.
Wow.
Like, he is a big character. And in a vacuum, the announcement would have been cool on its own, but this was a weekend where we got Future Trunks, and Geese and Tekken, and BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, and...
Which Future Trunks?
The Future Trunks from Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
I would have preferred the Dragon Ball Super Future Trunks. And then a Capcom comes out and, for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, they showed off Jeddah from Darkstalkers, who admittedly is probably the best looking character in the game so far. And then they announced Abigail, and I'm like, yeah, wow. This is your big announcement, eh, Capcom? This is your big cool looking character to show at EVO when you're facing unmitigated scrutiny from all angles for all of your games right now, and where your competitors are bringing their top A games and just eviscerating you. This is who you're going to announce, right?
Mm-hmm.
They showed more Fantasy Strike at EVO, and a little bit of a plug I'm going to do right now. Make sure you watch Novril's Fantasy Strike video that should be up on YouTube now. It's basically a video that he did for the developers of Fantasy Strike, and that I narrated, that talk about Fantasy Strike, how it is worth your time and attention, and it not only is going to be a great game in its own right, but can act as a gateway for other fighters to get people into fighters.
Yeah, I read a couple articles over the last few days about it, and...
You seen it being played?
I've seen it in motion, yeah. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look bad at all. It was more the comment section.
Oh yeah, well, the comment section. Generally, comment sections are best avoided.
I mean...
Especially from the fighting game community.
The fighting game community, I'm seeing one of two reactions. Hey, this looks cool, and could be a really good thing. Or... I hate David Sirlin and everything he stands for, and this game looks like ass.
Yeah, and
that was the comment section on multiple sites, because there was no middle ground.
No, there's not. And I've met cool members of the FGC locally and abroad, I guess. And honestly, some of the nicest people I've met come from that community. So they are exceptions to what I'm about to say. The fighting game community is fucking garbage. And they view rote execution and memorization as valuable and the signs of a high skill ceiling. And they've conflated a lowered skill ceiling with lowered execution, when in fact these two things can exist in harmony. I tell people this all the time, people are talking about how much better Dragon Ball FighterZ looks than Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. They're not wrong. But people also forget that, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, mechanics-wise, is solid. But you know what else is going to be great mechanics-wise? Dragon Ball FighterZ. It's an ArcSys game. And it's, so far, the controls make it look like it's going to be the easier game to play, too. And being an ArcSys game, it's probably going to have a very high skill ceiling. Low execution and a high skill ceiling can coexist. Fantasy Strike, the fighter, already demonstrates this in its alpha state. But the FGC has this execution fetishism problem, where they view very difficult timing tasks and muscle memory type things as valuable. Now, certainly you're allowed to like games like that, and you're allowed to cheer for tournaments for games like that, and even make games like that. But there are so many games like that already. Not every new game needs to be like it, and no, it does not make a fighting game better. And if you think otherwise, you are wrong. Like, it's an infuriating thing to see. It's an infuriating thing to see. Evo was still cool, though. I didn't know about this ESPN thing. It's so stupid. We are a stupid society. Speaking of stupid society, I was listening to an episode of CBC's Under the Influence this morning, and they were talking about inventors who regret their inventions. And there's a few I want to bring up because I have no doubt you're going to want to weigh in because some of these are right up your alley. Orville and Wilbur Wright, the Wright brothers. The aeroplane. Wilbur Wright died, and then Orville Wright continued, selling planes to the military. His wish was that by being able to observe other countries from the air, there'd be no need for war. Because no one would ever need to attack each other if they knew what everyone else was doing. Dave, let's talk a little bit about why that backfired immensely.
Well, World War I kind of proved the fact of air superiority giving you the win.
Yeah, at first, like throwing grenades down from airplanes and
the ability to drop
dogfighting with handguns.
Dogfighting with machine guns. And
later.
Actually, that happened pretty quick.
No, I realized the innovation. We were talking about it in the car earlier. That
because handguns weren't really working in the air for any sort of accuracy.
No, I realized that. And it's only been 114 years since we've had planes. And that's relatively tiny. That's a relatively small amount of time that we've been in modern society. It's only been 114 years since air travel wasn't a thing. It was gliders and fucking blindness to the world around us, right? Another inventor that regrets his invention, Farnsworth, the inventor of the television, believed that the television was supposed to help people learn. And instead, it commercialized a lot of things and made people dumber. He's partially correct and he's partially wrong because television has helped a lot of people learn. Hell, without television, we'd have no video games, and video games are how me and my brother and you learned a lot about reading. You know, like even my cousin learned a lot about reading from video games. You know, and television has been an educational tool. But it's also brought a lot of evil to our lives, and the inventor of the television regrets that. The inventor of the office cubicle, whose name I don't remember, he hates that invention because the cubicle office walls were supposed to be modular and lead to what we would talk about now as an open office. And instead they got smaller and tighter, and the managers saw them as little pods of efficiency and soul-sucking horrendous things.
You see, I hate him for both those concepts.
I know you're not a fan of the open office, but I'd rather work in an open office than in a cubicle farm any fucking day. I will give up the relative non-privacy of a cubicle for the openness of an office, even though I'm fairly antisocial and like to keep to myself.
Depends what environment you're working in.
Maybe, you know.
In a call center environment, I actually prefer the cubicle. Because it cuts down the noise from your neighbors. The open office means that you hear everybody's conversations, as does your client.
I heard everyone when I worked as a tech guy. I heard everyone's conversations anyway. Quickly learned to filter that out, cubicle or not. You know, like there's very little filtering in a shoulder high wall.
The shoulder high walls, yeah.
I mean, sure, there's some noise dampening that can happen there, and again, if you're talking about a modular environment, then the inventor has had his invention realized. It's the cubicle farms that people hate.
Yeah,
like I've worked in those environments and I hate them so much. Mm-hmm. I've never felt more isolated, despite being in a sea of people, than being in a soul-sucking fucking cubicle farm. And the last one that I was going to bring up is Anna Jarvis, the inventor of Mother's Day, who wanted it to be a day of reflection and a day where you spend time with your mother. And she despised the commercialization of it and turned down so much money from companies that have made billions of dollars off of exploiting this holiday. And I just thought, this is a fascinating thing to think about. All 4 of these inventions are real groundbreaking, especially the airplane. And to hear, Orville Wright underestimate mankind's, and I'm using mankind in this case because when I talk about bad things, I use the male term. Mankind's capacity for violence and greed to take an invention and warp it. I mean, capitalism and trade were supposed to be good things. They're not. Not anymore. We have outgrown them. But they were supposed to be good. They're supposed to be a quality of life improvement for everyone. And to see a lot of people seeing these inventions just turned by greed and capitalism. I'm so anti-capitalist these days. It's fascinating to think about, just as it is sobering and depressing to think about too.
Yep.
Thanks. Excellent contribution.
Well, no, there's not much else to say. Every invention that's ever been brought up, the first thing that people look at is what are its military applications. The automobile became the tank. Boating technology became battleships. We
can't ignore that these technologies have actually had a positive impact too.
Oh, sure.
I mean, even though I'm very anti-capitalist these days, there have been benefits to trade and capitalism. And there have been benefits to the television and to technology. Look, I can't be an anti-technologist. Look what we're using it for right now.
Radar became X-rays.
Yeah.
I mean, many technologies that has helped the medical sector as well as society in general came from war.
Sometimes we learn.
Ish.
I just wish we were the Federation already. I just wish we reached the point where we realized currency is awful and we need to become the Federation.
Give it a few more 100 years.
I want it to happen in my lifetime, and it never will. I know. Speaking of things that I never thought I'd see happen in my lifetime, I really thought this was going to keep going forever because of how much money it was making all parties. But Archie Comics and Sega have ceased their partnership, and the Sonic Archie series is ending.
After 25 years. Now, granted, that's not as long as Archie Comics itself.
No.
Or some other comics like Batman and etc. Superman, all the DC and Marvel comics. But 25 years of a stable Sonic storyline that even influenced the games themselves.
With multiple issues. Or multiple branching stories.
Multiple branches, stories, and everything else. I mean, Sega did not lose anything by having Archie Comics do the Sonic comic, because that's kind of where my interest popped up from. I mean, yeah, I played the games, but the games were like, okay, I'm playing a Hedgehog and I'm going through stages fast. There wasn't much of a storyline to the original Sonic games. I got everything from the Saturday morning Sonic cartoon, the good one, and the comics.
Honestly, even though I fell out of love with the comics a long time ago, I can't deny their impact and the fact that there were some cool stories in them that I read up about later. And honestly, we know that Sega has nothing against having Western storytellers take their characters, making an alternate take of them, and running with it. While the Sonic Boom games are not good, the Sonic Boom series is fan-fucking-tastic.
Still haven't given it a chance.
It is really good. I recommend it. And that looks like it's not ending anytime soon.
Good.
So, but it's just, it's kind of sad to see this go. It's like, honestly, this could have gone on forever. I would love to know why it happened.
I bet I know why it's happening.
Hang on. Should I play a conspiracy theory theme?
Sure.
Okay. Weird conspiracy theme. Dave has a conspiracy to talk about with you. Here's Dave's
Oh god,
conspiracy
that
theme.
was awful.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take that audio clip. I'm going to fucking put some music to it, and it's going to be our new conspiracy theme.
Lord.
First bit of music we have on this show that is nearing 100 episodes over, 5 years? We're going to talk about that on the 100th episode, why it took us so long to get to 100 episodes.
Sure. No, what I'm thinking is happening is Sega has been looking at other properties like, say, Transformers that IDW took over and has turned it into a multi-universe kind of storyline going on and has really salvaged what Michael Bay has done to Transformers. Sega's probably looking at that. I would almost place down money saying that IDW will be the group that's taking over Sonic.
So you think they're going to introduce Sonic into the Transformers verse?
No, I don't think...
G.I. Joe, Sonic Stories by Aubrey Sitterson?
I don't think they're going to do a mix of the universes, but I do believe IDW, with their very good writing staff and amazing artwork, could easily take over the storyline. What I wish would happen is that they would actually take over and continue, but it's going to be a reboot, obviously.
What sucks about that is that Archie Comics Mega Man series is also really good. I don't know if that's still going. There's a big Sonic Mega Man crossover that was actually very well received. And yeah, if Sega has other comic plans, fine. I hope this wasn't something where some Japanese Sega exec was like, you know what, we don't want to do this, end it. Kind of like how in Mario, there's a lot of ideas in both Mario and Zelda that originated from the American Mario and Zelda cartoons that Nintendo to this day disavows. I would hope that's not the case because it's really scummy to not acknowledge where these influences came from.
Well, this is rather sudden, though, for the Sonic comic to end, because from what I've read, it's leaving a number of major plot lines just hanging.
Yep.
Ultimately, this is Sega doing a disservice to its longtime fans. They should have given them another 6 months to finish off everything that was going.
I agree.
If you're just going to kill something and leave your fans hanging, that's not cool. But what do you expect from a company that has left people hanging for PSO? For what? Are we going on 6 years now?
PSO2, you can play that in English, and it's entirely fan-based efforts that you can play it in English. Mm-hmm. It should have been out in English, on release, and now Sega's just never going to do it.
No.
They're just never going to do it. But yeah, Sega's awful in a lot of ways. I know I like to shit on Nintendo for being awful, but Sega's pretty awful too.
Yeah?
God, I can't wait to play Sonic Mania, though.
I'm going into that with very low expectations.
Okay, but I mean, it's being made by the guy who did the Sonic remakes on mobile, and with level design that looks like Sonic 2 and 3.
Great.
Those are good games, and you will not be denying me
Sonic.
I'm
not denying that Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I enjoyed all those games. All I'm saying is until I actually have my hands on it and am playing through an enjoyable game, I'm going to keep my expectations low because Sega has not earned.
In fairness, that is the wise thing to do with any game, honestly.
I mean, Sega has brought forward its very best in stuff they've shown off for other Sonic games, and then you get your hands on, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Look, I'm the same way. Even though what I saw of Mario Odyssey disappointed me, there's enough people who weren't disappointed and enough of a curiosity for Mario that I still want to play it. And maybe I'll get my hands on it and I'll be like, no, this is actually good and I'm on crack.
Yeah, you don't know until... This is why I look forward to certain companies bringing out their demos again. Mm-hmm. And even then, I don't trust those because...
Would you like those demos on floppy?
Even then, I don't trust the demos because in most cases, like PC was back in the 90s, they would show you the absolute best they had in the demo. And then you get the game, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Or in Arxis' case, give you almost the entire game.
Yeah, Arxis is awesome for stuff like that. Speaking of awesome, and this is a topic that we've talked about before, but that you have shit on entirely. I have had the chance recently to stand up and test out the HTC Vive VR headset and controls and everything else here recently. And I've got...
Speak of a reality most virtual.
So, I've got to say, I didn't actually think that VR had come as far as it has. Now, this is on a really good PC. The Vive and the Oculus are the PC VR units right now, with the Oculus not doing so well from what we've been hearing. The Vive is actually still around $1,200. So that's a steep...
This is a rich person toy still.
It's a rich person toy, so there isn't a very big install base for it. Which is unfortunate, because it leads to one of the weaknesses that I'll talk of later. So, for the Vive, unlike stuff like the Microsoft's Kinect, you don't need a large floor base to do it. You can actually do it within I've read as small as 3x3.
3 of what unit?
3 foot by 3 foot.
That is
It's a tiny
amount of room.
For that though, I mean, you're not moving at all.
It's 9 square feet.
Yeah. In the case of my friend, it was like a 4 meter by 4 meter kind of situation.
That is much bigger than 9 square feet. Much
bigger, and it's neat because he threw me into the simulation for testing the controls and everything else. Because he wanted me to... Great training interface for how they show you. They throw you into a giant warehouse, and this is Valve's training sort of situation. So there's some Portal stuff going on and everything else. And it was neat because, you're in this giant warehouse... Things are coming at you, and if you've ever watched a video trying to show off VR, like, for example, Angry Joe did a VR game a while back, saying how great the game was and everything else, but, you watch it and you're like, well, how's this so great? You cannot show off how awesome the VR is in 2D. You can't do it, because... Even something as simple as there was a robotic dog that Valve had made that was running around in the room with me. The Vive actually has the ability to turn on a little camera on the helmet so you're not completely blind, kind of thing. And my friend was watching it on his TV, what I was looking at. And you lose not only depth, but kind of believability in the 2D plane versus VR, because this dog was acting very much like a dog. I mean, I could pick up a stick off the table, throw it, and just like a dog, it's running after it, bringing it back. It was... The VR made things so much more believable for what I was doing and seeing. So it was a riot right from the start. I mean, I pressed different buttons and it would throw out confetti or make a balloon animal, stuff like that, just to get me used to the controls. And then he threw me into a game where I'm using a slingshot, pulling it back, and their AI cores from Portal, all with different personalities and saying different things, including their screams, which were awesome. Because you're in a giant warehouse up a certain way, and you're trying to drop as much of the boxes and platforms into the pit for score. So you could also target these blue boxes, which gave you additional shots, or you could shoot these barrels that would blow up sections of it. So that was neat. So now I've got that I can pull things back. Like, at no time did I feel that I was out of control. The controllers, I mean, I was grabbing things, pulling it back, and everything just felt natural. Then he threw me into a couple of simulators where I was going on top of mountains and jumping back and forth. That's the one thing that VR is VR's weakness right now, is movement. While within that area that he had blocked off for VR, if I got close to the boundary, an actual blue boundary would pop up right in front of me, see-through, and let me know that I was getting to the edge of my area so I could reset myself. But if you're going from room to room like an adventure game, or one of the guys at work mentioned, well, could you do like Gears of War in it? No, you can't. Not yet. Because movement is, you're limited to that stretch of movement. You can't exactly run. Gears of War running wouldn't work unless you were able to control it with your gamepad or your two hand controls that you're doing. Mm-hmm. Movement like that would have to be done like that. So right now...
Well, I mean, Resident Evil 7 is a very popular VR game right now.
Yes.
And it's really well made, too.
Yes, but the movement, when you're moving left, right, and everything else, you're doing that via a movement stick on the...
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that we can do holodeck stuff yet.
Well, right? I'm not even talking holodeck. Like, there's no... You can't really get the, well, I'm walking towards the screen kind of thing, except for, like a couple feet in the game sort of scenario. So movement is still either done via pressing up or down on the remote controls, or holding down a button and having a movement indicator for the next room. So that's kind of a limitation right now still. But the way, again, I have to reference the Kinect again, because the Kinect promised us, being able to play fighting games, boxing and everything else. And we all know how that turned out. The damn thing couldn't follow you worth a fucking damn. It didn't have the processing power. And the camera was good. It just couldn't do it. The Vive's cameras and everything else, 100% accurate movement. At no time did it lose me. My friend threw me into a puzzle game. And I'm grabbing parts of the puzzles, I'm tearing things apart, putting it back together. A tool flew away from me into the background, and I was able to summon it like force pull from Star Wars, which this unit made me wish I was playing a Star Wars game, because lightsaber battles, blaster battles would have been awesome.
This is one thing that if I ever was going to try VR, and I'm still not interested. But although I do want to hear more about your experiences, by the way, I'm not bored here. One thing if I was going to try VR, space combat sims, like a new TIE Fighter or X-Wing, that would be what I'd want to do with it.
And for that one, I mean, you would be able to sit down, you could do like racing sort of stuff, you could...
Pod racing?
Wait, pod racing, piloting X-Wings and TIE Fighters, freaking... Well, this puzzle game, the graphics are fucking amazing. Now, the screens inside these goggles aren't 4K. Look, we're not paying $5,000 for this, but it was better than 1080p. I think it's like a 1200 resolution kind of thing to keep with PC systems more. But it was clear, it was accurate, moving around and looking at things. Like, these indie game developers, because most of these games are indies, are doing amazing things. And I mean, again, for this puzzle game, I got to the end of the game within an hour. I was like, more. And that is another problem I'll come back to. The final game I got to play was Super Hot. That Super Hot's been out for PC forever. Yep. And they slapped on VR onto it.
And probably a decent VR game too, to be honest.
If any of our audience grew up in the 80s and 90s with arcades and played any of those police simulators where you could actually move and dodge bullets and shoot people, Super Hot is exactly that in VR.
It should be noted that Dave made a moving motion with his body, which you can't see over the mic.
Yeah.
Dave is talking about the games where you actually physically moved to dodge things.
Yeah, like you'd stand up inside a box sort of system, and it would be able to actually, you move your shoulders and you could dodge a bullet kind of thing. Well, Super Hot is 100% that, except the game only actually advances in time when you move or make an action. So I was dodging bullets, grabbing bottles and guns and shooting or throwing things at people. It was great. The only limitation there was I couldn't figure out how to throw throwing stars, so I literally used them as daggers when the guys came up to me. Only thing that mattered, I won. Play to win. Could not fucking figure that out to save my life. Literally.
Did you try the shinobi method where you hold them in one hand and just flick them off like they're letters?
Couldn't do that, unfortunately. You had to actually grab, wind up, and throw, but whenever I threw it, it always just fell to the ground for some reason. I wasn't getting the right motion.
What about the shinobi bonus level for VR?
That was, yeah, exactly. But a game like Shinobi, actually, funny enough, would work perfectly in VR.
You talking the original 2D arcade Shinobi or something more modern?
2D.
Oh. Are you talking just the bonus rounds or the actual side-scrolling levels?
The bonus rounds.
Okay.
Yeah, no, like, Ninja Gaiden would not work in VR. The new Ninja Gaiden might work in VR, just not the old 2D one.
I don't know. Getting so frustrated you throw your headset doesn't seem like a productive use of your $1,200.
Again, I think lightsaber battles, blaster battles, stuff like that would work just perfectly with this sort of situation. So VR, yeah, we all want the holodeck. We all want, I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but those of us who enjoyed stuff like Sword Art, dot hack, and that sort of thing, that or holodecks are what people want to get to.
There is nothing but pain and misery in my future if either of these become a reality. Because I'm going to have to save your dumbass. No, sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm going to have to save friend of the show Kiki's dumbass when she follows you. You I'm going to let die.
Why do you...
Moriarty can have you.
Good reference. But, so that was the strengths. Now we get to the weaknesses. And the weaknesses are its install base. The fact that AAA titles aren't there. And the indie games that are there, you're getting usually like a chapter 1 of a book. And... let's go a little bit nicer. You're getting volume 1 of the book of a 3-book series, and you're not guaranteed that book 2 or 3 is ever going to come. Kind of thing. Because it doesn't sell well, or the company goes under because of it. You have to take your experiences, even the ones you enjoy, with a grain of salt, because you just may not get anything beyond that. So the fact that companies are not making a lot of games for it, of the AAA variety, are one of its big weaknesses. Movement is the second one. Third is the fact that VR is very, very much a fractured group right now. For PC, you've got Oculus Rift and the Vive. And then you have Microsoft's own for Xbox One.
Then you have PlayStation VR.
And then you have PlayStation VR. So when you're looking at upcoming games, you have to be very careful that's coming out for your system. The fact that the Vive is so expensive for what it does makes me very worried about what PlayStation and the Xbox One versions are doing. Because I'm on a monster system. And I'm on a very expensive headset meant for proper usage. Whereas now the Oculus is down to $450, $500, as is Xbox and PlayStation. I don't think the systems have enough to pull off what the Vive did. So, and there's really no place to test any of these things. If I didn't have a friend that had it, I wouldn't be able to give it as glowing of a review as I am, because there's no... And they don't want to make any place that you can test this stuff. They want you to jump right in, blind, and then be stuck with it. If Sony and Microsoft want people to be able to trust what they're doing. There has to be a place to try these things out. And you're only going to find that in some of the high-tech bars / adult arcade sort of things in different cities. Here in Edmonton, we actually have a entertainment complex on the south side that actually has a unit. But outside of companies being willing to do that, it's a very big risk. Now that I've played with one, I would never get the PlayStation or the Microsoft one because I don't believe I could trust it. Both systems are underpowered compared to my computer. Well, easily. My video card has more power than those entire systems. But it just... VR is not there yet, but now that I've had a good experience with it, I really want it to be because it was neat. Flight sims, or I would love a Mech Warrior.
Mech Warrior would be a good one.
A Mech Warrior game would be amazing. A TIE Fighter game, X-Wing, anything that, you pan your head, you're looking out your viewports to do it. It just...
A TIE Fighter would be great for that because of the open cockpit design of a TIE Fighter. You could look down and see what's under you.
Yeah, it would be so neat. And there's so much potential here, but I understand why companies aren't jumping yet.
Descent.
Again, I stood for probably 2.5 hours straight while doing this stuff. And by the end, my legs were starting to hurt a little bit from everything I was doing, but the puzzle game I was in, I was on some platforms sometimes, and I was, inching my way forward because, there's a giant pit there into the abyss. And that is something that's very hard to trick the mind on. But the Vive did it great in these games, because, I was, even my body posture, I was just kind of inching towards, then leaning out a little bit to look down, and it's like, you just start to feel a little bit off balance. You're like, oh, what the hell? The helmet wasn't heavy, but it was a little bit cumbersome because it's all wired at this point. It's probably a good thing because I don't trust wireless for stuff like that. So there was multiple wires coming down from the unit down my back, kind of thing. That didn't get in the way because it give you way enough cable to move around with, but you just make sure you don't trip yourself, kind of thing. The remotes were customizable by game. It used them in different ways, triggers, buttons. I really did appreciate the fact that it had that camera in the front, so you're never actually blind. If you want to drink, you can just pause the game, turn it on, and grab things. Especially seeing as you can... My friend had found that it was better to wear headphones with it, because then you lost any sounds around you. I don't know if I'd do that if I was alone, in case, kind of thing. But I do appreciate that it's the only unit actually that has that camera. So, if you do feel anything's weird wrong, just pause, look around, and you can see stuff. You don't have to take it off. It worked with my glasses. They actually gave you more than enough room to have your glasses on in there, but partway through I took my glasses off and it worked just as well. So
I imagine that would be more of concern for far-sighted folks rather than nearsighted. Because nearsighted doesn't really matter if it's right up to my eyes. I can see it just fine.
Yeah, so that was bonus marks for that, because from what I've heard, the Oculus Rift doesn't have that. You have to actually get a piece of foam in between to kind of use your glasses with it. So yeah, that was my VR experience. I would have loved if they had Portal. Proper Portal for VR would have been neat. The only thing I think that would cause some problems with is motion sickness. Some of those puzzles launching you. That might be a little bit much. No, that was more for Portal 2. Well, no, Portal 1 had some of that. Yeah, no, I look forward to what the future's going to come for this. I'm so close, even at $1,200, wanting to get invested with it, but I'm just waiting for the next iteration of it to see what happens over the next 6 months. Because at E3 this year, Microsoft completely didn't mention a single thing on VR this year at their show. PlayStation still was pushing it. I'm glad for that they're still interested in VR, though the VR games they showed off were asinine to the greatest degree. I mean, come on, Final Fantasy XIV fishing? Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean,
Final Fantasy XV fishing was already one of the worst things in that game. And now you're going to make a VR game based off of it?
Sonic Adventure Big the Cat's fishing VR experience.
Where's
Froggy?
Now, if they gave me Breath of Fire 3 fishing experience, I might just be up for that.
The problem is that works best in its default
in
isometric
2D.
overhead view.
It really does.
God, that was the greatest fishing minigame of any
absolutely.
game.
Absolutely, because it was fun.
The Big the Cat one's not bad either. In terms of fishing, it's a bad thing to have in Sonic Adventure. If that's the fishing you got in, say, an RPG, it'd be great.
You know what the funny thing is, though? Big the Cat fishing was nothing more than Sega's VR fishing to begin with.
Yeah, I know.
I had gotten my dad a couple of the Sega fishing games. That was exactly that, where you throw it out, you see the bobber, and you do all that stuff with it.
I actually don't think for a fishing minigame there's anything wrong with the Big the Cat segment in Sonic Adventure. The problem is that it's mandatory.
Yeah.
That's the issue. And it doesn't quite explain, hey, flick down when you hook a fish. That's why Egoraptor spent like 5 hours on what should have taken him about
10 seconds.
50 minutes of a full Big the Cat playthrough.
Yeah, exactly. So, VR shows a lot of promise for where it is right now. Movement is definitely its weakest part, but until we get platforms where we can stand on it's basically a marble that you can walk around on, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Sound and visuals are simply amazing depending on the game. Granted, I didn't play any games that weren't spectacular. I'm sure there's ones on there that probably would have disappointed me. Google Maps, for frick's sakes, looks amazing in VR. Being able to stand in any place in the world and I didn't type in Edmonton, for example.
I can walk around my neighborhood.
I went to Venice or a dam in the U.S. Stuff like that, and it had a little bit of vertigo and the flying kind of stuff where you're moving around, but it's neat being able to go to the one-to-one and kind of just poke around and see what things are being done. There's a lot of potential here. We're not meeting it.
It's fascinating to hear about, even though I don't care for VR. When you told me about all this the other day, I was like, man, you got to put this on the next podcast.
Yeah.
This is... just because I don't care about it doesn't mean I don't want to hear about it, and this is a podcast, and I'm definitely sure our tens of listeners have looked at VR at some point. And there's potential here, and there's kind of like with the television, there's potential for good and bad. There's some great remote drone applications for this that will make life horrible for people. There's also great ways there are also applications in medicine and in communications and in education as well, and in gaming. And maybe there will be a day that I put on a VR headset and enjoy myself. It's a fascinating technology, whether or not I ever want to dive in.
You've got it right with drones.
It's always drones.
I'm not even talking, military drones, just for everything from photography to like you could literally do a VR simulation of a trade center or a event kind of thing. Like imagine you're watching a concert in VR. you could do it very easily. I mean, some of these drone slash camera systems, they're quiet. So you could actually have one of those in a concert, just paying attention to the concert. You don't even have to be there. But there's things that we can do here. I've even heard some theaters saying that they should try that for the theater experience. I don't know if that would work quite as well, but
there are certain movies that would work better. As I would never want to see a film where it's kind of like even if it's an action film with a very interpretive message like District 9, I would never want to see that in VR. I would want it to be more for the popcorn movie type flicks that are very easy to digest and not very mentally taxing, like Avatar, for instance.
Oh yeah, like Avatar, and we're talking the right Avatar here, right?
We're talking James Cameron's Avatar. Yes.
That would have been an amazing movie to see in like a VR kind of setup. Granted, it would have taken another 5 years to do, but...
Oh God, if James Cameron listens to this and hears this, he's going to want to shoot Avatar 2 in VR, and that movie's going to be delayed another 15 years. Then again, James Cameron fought against The Last Airbender using the Avatar name, so fuck that guy.
Would you want your movie even potentially being compared to that piece of shit?
When I say The Last Airbender, I'm talking about the franchise. I'm not talking about M. Night Shyamalan's Abomination.
Mm-hmm. I stand by what I said.
Okay, fair enough. I just now got what you said. Okay. I've just been informed about the joke. I found a new problem with Final Fantasy XIV that people who want to get in should be fully aware of. And that is the...
Oh, we're gonna fight here, aren't we?
That is the Wind Waker Triforce Hunt. That is the forced 70 bajillion story quests you have to do to not only unlock every dungeon and feature, but also reach Heavensward and get the new abilities for your non-Stormblood classes post level 50. I switched to a Stormblood class Samurai just so I wouldn't have to keep leveling a warrior who would never get abilities past 50 until I finally got to that point. I'm also kind of enjoying Samurai too.
Yeah, let's talk about 14 here a little bit. You're right. I may not have agreed with you on some of the things you said on Facebook. I do actually think the storyline is... I am enjoying the storyline, but my God.
Here's the thing. I said this on my Facebook post as well. I said this on multiple social media things. These bazillion mandatory story quests would be awful if the story was good. If I was actually reading it and actually thought it was good, I would still hate this because it's being force-fed to me. It could be the best story I've ever read in a game, and I would hate that it's mandatory.
You know something? I read that wrong. I'm sorry. You're correct. I actually think the storyline to Final Fantasy XIV, I've been enjoying it. But, yes, you are correct. My God, stop making me jump around the fucking world. Yeah. Every other goddamn quest.
It's so annoying, man.
I complained when I left the game a couple years back. I don't think dungeons should be part of the storyline. And this is back then, okay? A couple years ago, I waited 6 hours to do a storyline dungeon just so I could unlock my retainers.
I think having dungeons in the story quests are fine if the story quests aren't mandatory.
Or you can solo the damn thing.
Or you could solo them. That would be okay too.
But making me group on a storyline quest and locking things to the story is nothing but a piss off.
It's a huge piss off, especially when even if this, I loved the story, and I don't, even if I did, I would still hate the fact that one moment they're tasking me to bring down Leviathan, god of the sea, and then the next moment I have to pick up some shit behind the bar. Why doesn't Minfilia, the leader of the Scions, do it? She does nothing else! She does nothing! She is the leader of the heroes of that world, and she does nothing. I've not seen her do one thing. I saw her get kidnapped once.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go and get her back.
Yeah, and I was reading online. I actually typed out, does Minfilia do anything? And the answer is no.
Then again, a bunch of the people of the Scions, you can say that. It's like, why am I doing everything?
Some of them fight sometimes, not Minfilia. Apparently there are scenes later where she's like the head of the group photo cheering, and I'm like, what are you doing in front of everyone? You've done nothing. Nothing!
Yeah, no, the storyline quests are freaking annoying right now. I hate the whole MMO mentality of making you run all around the world just to try and drain you of money.
And it's awful. You do the final level 50 one that actually leads to credits, and before you can get to Heavensward, there's another bazillion quests that you have to do that were all the stuff that came out in the Realm Reborn patches before Heavensward. These are not trivial. These are dozens upon dozens of quests that also involve dungeons and trials against more primals. Yeah. These are not trivial. You will not get your level 52 Bard ability until you have beaten all of this.
Wow.
This is why the Stormblood classes, Samurai and Red Mage, are super easy to unlock. You just finish the level 50 main story thing, then you go get them, and you have them at level 50. I recommend grabbing one or both of them, and then leveling them to do the rest, so that, because apparently their level 52 abilities you can just get when you want. And then when you're done that, go back to your Bard. Wow. That's what I'm doing with Samurai, because I'm already a level 53 warrior, and I don't have my level 52 ability. And I won't be able to get it until I finish this final last leg of a bazillion quests I'm doing.
That's pathetic.
It's really bad. I cannot get any of the Heavensward classes. I was thinking, hey, I'd kind of like to try Dark Knight. Dark Knight starts at 30. I must be able to just get to 30 with one class and grab Dark Knight, right? No, I literally have to do all this. It's easier to go get Samurai. You meet a Samurai and he's like, bam, you're a Samurai now. And you're level 50 to boot. Wow. Okay, then.
I didn't realize that the jump in was that
Dave,
pitiful.
By the time you see that credit scene in the main story quest, I'd say you're about halfway done. Yeah, there's a lot to go still.
You know, it kind of surprises me that they haven't fixed that.
I don't think it's a bug. I think this is an intended feature.
But intended back when all that came out, we're now 2 expansions in.
Yeah.
WoW, as much as Blizzard sucks sometimes, would have fixed that to be like, okay, well, you don't have to do everything anymore. This is one thing WoW does better. There are a couple things WoW does better than this. One is you can just jump into the latest patch's content right then. Yeah. The second thing WoW does better is that each class has multiple roles that they can do. In Final Fantasy XIV, only one has that, and that's the whatever class can become either Scholar and Summoner, because all those levels are shared. Yeah. And I kind of wish I could be like a Red Mage tank, or a Warrior DPS, or something like that. But I mean, arguably, you could argue that the easy class switching is just switching specs anyway. So that is true. That is one thing I miss, though, because it's much easier to just make one character. You know, I'm never going to try any of the other races, because why? Why bother? Yeah. But in WoW, it's a hassle because every character levels up independently. If WoW changed it so that all my leveling and reputation and questing was all to my account, and every individual character I made was just one at one deployment that I could go do that would be a lot better, I think. Kind of like how the family system or the was in Star Wars. Yeah, or in that one top-down MMO we played for a bit, Sword of the New World, or Sword of the New Coast or something. And I made the Strombolopolis family that I could have multiple characters under. Yeah, I actually like that idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else? You were looking at your list. That's pretty much it. Okay, folks, we are not dead.
Give us some time to recover from our editing station woes, and we'll be back with more anime raves and then more podcasts. We are Two Fat Guys Talk, and we are also the co-hosts of the show, the Carlos Nave Anime Rave, the best anime review and reaction show on the internet. Find us on either twofatguystalk.com or animerave.xyz. They both go to the same place. Leave us comments, leave us voicemails on that site. Leave us some kind of feedback. We are so hungry for feedback all the time. We could subsist on that instead of food.
Tune in next time.